future. Stay with us, we'll be right back.
Today, we are gathered here with a renewed sense of purpose to show just how committed we are. 37,000 children are still stuck on waiting lists for charter schools, and that's just wrong. More than 25,000 Massachusetts residents have signed our petition to lift the cap on charter schools. It is with honor that I hand you this extremely heavy list of signatures, 25,000 strong.
We have a great opportunity here in Massachusetts to make sure that every family gets to have the opportunity to deliver for them a great education. I'm proud to be a supporter of this movement. Thank you very much for being here.
Leila Negron, this is Concepto. My name is Rodolfo Aguilar. In this part of the segment, we are going to be talking about the other side of the coin, which I said, which is some of the opposition. Can you talk to me about the experience that all of this misinterpretation of what the movement is all about?
So there are many myths for charter schools, starting from that they're not serving students that are learning English as a second language, which is not true. In the last 2 years, charter schools have actually gained more students, percentage-wise, than traditional public schools that are English learners. The same thing with special education. They serve students with special educations, and the percentage is increasing more and more each year. And they're giving them the needs. As a matter of fact, studies have shown that not only are they serving more students with special needs now, but those students are doing better at a faster rate, and they're even getting off their IEPs faster because they're getting the services that they need. So those are two of the main critiques that charter schools have had for a while. There are many facts from parents not even knowing about charter schools or what they are. They're public schools. Charter schools are public schools. They're free to anybody. You don't have to take an exam to go in there. You can just fill an application, put it in the lottery, and it's pure luck.
And go through that painful process that we just explained.
Exactly. It's all luck. So there's families that try for the first time and they get in. There's families that have been trying for 6-7 years and are still on a wait list. So, and another thing is, these families have to fill up these applications every year and go through that lottery process. They don't stay on a wait list forever. Every year you have to go back and reapply, which is painful for families who have been on the wait list every year.
What I've gathered about the information about charter schools that they're public, they're in our neighborhoods, they're no additional cost for us. Mm-hmm. However, they work independently from the Board of Education. I mean, they do comply to all the regulations of the Massachusetts laws in education. However, they're not managed or controlled by the Boston Public Schools. Mm-hmm. And that has created issues about, they're taking away resources that can be better used in the Boston Public Schools. However, that money is staying in the neighborhood.
Exactly. So the difference between a traditional public schools and a public charter school is that it's its own district. So let's say BPS is its own district. The charter schools, let's say like Brook Charter Schools are its own district. Excel Academy is its own district. So these schools, whether it's BPS or Brook, all work in the same towards the same laws. Like they have to abide by the education committee regulations, right? But the only thing they can do is they can have their own structure. So their autonomy. They can create longer school days. They can hire and fire teachers as, based on their performance. They don't have to hire teachers who are in the union. They can have uniform. Their discipline can be, more strict than a traditional public schools. There's a lot of different things that these schools are doing. But when we look at the results, we see that these schools are doing something that is working because our kids are doing better than a lot of the kids in the entire state. And each charter school district is different, and even the discipline is different within charter schools.
You mentioned you have a website that you can look at each of the schools in the 400 and plus school districts.
That's right. So charterfactsma.org, you can go and look up any questions you might have about a charter school. You'll find them there in English and in Spanish. And it's really important that we educate ourselves because we hear a lot of rumors, a lot of myths on charter schools. So it's very important that we educate ourselves to make sure that we have the correct information.
They're saying that this movement or charter schools are targeting low income, are targeting low educated families. And it's not that they're targeting, it's just that they see the need these families have and they want to create a service specifically for these families who are being left out of a great opportunity to have a great education.
Yeah, and by law, the legislation, even the new legislation that the governor has proposed that is in the Senate, targets the 25% low performing school districts. So obviously, the charter schools are going to open in the low income communities because that's where the need is. We want these families to have the education that their child deserves. Excellent schools is what we're targeting for.
Another thing is, for example, I can see why the Massachusetts Teachers Association and the unions are against it, because basically, as we move into the charter, opening charter schools, opening chapters in charter schools, these schools are autonomous, so they don't have to respond to them. So unions don't get fees from these teachers because these teachers, in many cases, are not unionized.
Absolutely. So most of the charter school teachers are not unionized. They don't belong to a union, and if there's there's a different contract for them. So that's the difference. So if a charter school teacher is not performing at the level they should be, the school can fire them and say you're just not doing the work that you need to do. Where a traditional public school teacher, it's a little harder to get rid of a teacher that's not doing the job that they're supposed to because they're protected by the union.
There are uniforms. There is a code of discipline, not necessarily the one that Boston Public System has, but each school, as you mentioned, has autonomy, so they do have their guidelines and they do have disciplinary codes. They do have a dress code. There is a reason for that. There's a reason for a uniform. There's a reason of discipline because the kids are there to learn, and we send our kids to learn. And we sometimes find out, because I speak to also teachers in the Boston Public System, and I asked them, why is it that you cannot do your job? They said their hands are tied because they don't have the back by the administration in taking disciplinary actions on the students. And I'm not saying that we should target kids who we can call them trouble kids, but I think that these kids need to know that there are codes or their guidelines that they need to follow. And some of the things these teachers in the Boston Public System say that it prevents them from teaching to the kids who do want to learn.
Absolutely, and I think the discipline varies from school to school, even within the charter schools. Whatever that specific district has set to be their guidelines for discipline. But if it worked for a school, and again, I'm going to use the Brook as an example because my kids go there. Is very strict. It has discipline. But as a parent, that's what I want for my kids, and that's the great thing about it, right? We just want parents to have options. If that's the type of school that you want to send your child to, you should have an option to send your child there. You shouldn't have to be on a wait list because there's no spaces for them. And the reason why Brook has such a strict discipline is because they want to make sure that they're sweating the small stuff. Your child might get in trouble for doing something that you might think, oh, that was not a big deal. But they're never going to get in trouble for doing something way out of line because it's not going to get to that level. Even with the uniform, it just, there's no bullying about what you're wearing because everybody's wearing the same thing.
Let's talk about that when we come back. Are we going to take another video, another clip? Because I do want our audience to visualize some of the things that we're talking about. And when we come back, we can talk about Brook specifically, about their academic success and their disciplinary codes that they have and why you believe in it. My kids go to the Brook too, and I can tell you I agree with them. But let's go to this clip, and when we come back, we can talk specifically about them, who actually recently will open the door in August to a high school, to close to 700 students, and we'll talk about that when we come back. Stay with us. This is Concepto.
37,000 children are waiting to get into a public charter school.
They're waiting for a fair shot in a great education.
37,000 kids are waiting. It's time to stand up and fight for these children.
These kids deserve a fair shot.
And they can't wait any longer.
It's time to lift the charter cap now.
It's time to lift the cap.
Lift the cap now.
Okay, once again, this is Concepto, and we are here with Shayla Negron, who is actually advocating for great schools in Massachusetts. When we left it, we were talking about Brook, who actually will open their doors to a high school in August. And it wasn't easy for them. I know that you've been to many of the hearings, and we were talking about why is it that the school is such a success in being ranked #1 in Massachusetts. And some of the things that we're talking about was the discipline, dress code, and why is it that you believe in that?
You know, I think they do a phenomenal job with the small class sizes, the professional development that they offer to the teachers. You know, these teachers are really dedicated and they really care about your students. I've gotten texts, 9 p.m. telling me how great my child's school day was. It's little things like that that make a difference. Not only for children, but for the teachers. You walk in there and all the teachers look happy to be there, and they're so excited about teaching our children. And even though it's strict and kids, they have high expectations for our children, my kids always come home happy. They're always happy because they offer them the education they need, but they praise them for the hard work that they put in, and they offer them, dance and gym and art class and, extracurricular activities so that they are getting a well-rounded education. These kids are really getting the best education possible, and there's nothing I can say about the school that I'm not happy with.
Well, I've read comments about they run sort of like a militant style school. Their discipline code is too strict. I speak to my kids. One of them actually graduated from there. Now he's a junior in high school, and he was explaining to me that yes, they are strict, but don't you have rules in your house? Don't you have guidelines that you need your kids to follow? I mean, if you want to have a successful family, as I speak to my kids and I tell them, I'm only adopting something that will help you in the future. And I do agree that kids need to be challenged, and they're being challenged at the Brook. And they're being challenged at Excel, and they're being challenged at the Phoenix. And I'm pretty sure they're being challenged in some of the Boston public schools. But something went wrong some time ago, and they haven't been able to turn it around. And right now they're playing with our kids' future, and I don't think it's fair at all. These are people who are professionals, who get paid well to do a job, and if I don't do a good job where I go to work every day, I'm pretty sure I would have been fired a long time ago. The same thing with you. You need to perform. You need to do your best when you go to work.
Absolutely. And, it's something like, we have a lot of great teachers, in the BPS system, in the charter school system, but it's just making sure that our kids are receiving the best education possible. And, having people or adults hired that are not doing the work that they're supposed to do really affects our children. And we really need to take a step back and look at who's getting, who's important here? The kids are. Adults can take care of themselves, but the kids can't. The education that they're receiving now will affect their future. So making sure that we have in mind what matters.